Okay, I can't be the only one that doesn't really like Prismatic Titan. So I've been gearing up for Grandmaster Nightfalls, and I've been trying to make Prismatic Titan work, and I just keep coming back to Solar. I keep coming back to Sunbreaker. I keep coming back to Pyrogale Gauntlets. It's so much fun. The cohesion, the synergy of how it all works together is so good. And I'm sorry if you love Prismatic and that's all you've been playing lately. This video is probably not for you. Today we're talking about Solar Titan in Grandmaster Nightfalls. I've been working on getting this ready for next week's Grandmaster release. Ran through the Legendary campaign solo with it. Just finished up farming a ton of Master Nightfalls. And I gotta say, I think this is something special this season. So to start off, I'm using the Pyrogale Gauntlets. Modifies Burning Maul into a single high damage slam of your hammer that creates several cyclones of flame. Consecration's second slam creates a cyclone of flame. So instead of doing a bunch of Burning Maul attacks, you just do one big one. You can get back to using your weapons, get back to doing more damage. And then also, we're definitely leaning into the Consecration's second slam, creating a cyclone of flame. And that thing lasts pretty long. Can really help you take down some beefier targets or clear full rooms. Then for the subclass, definitely going Burning Maul to pair it with Pyrogale Gauntlets. For the abilities, I'm using Towering Barricade. This is especially good for Grandmaster Nightfalls. You can use it to block a doorway, just watch your back, shield while you get a revive. There's so many different uses for this. I'm not really building around the barricade in any way, so I only really use it defensively or to set up a good position to be in for a specific objective or something like that. For the jump, I like Strafe Lift. For the melee, going with Throwing Hammer. Even in Grandmasters, I tend to use this a lot. I weaken red bars until I know I can kill him with a shot of the hammer, hit him with the hammer. You get cured, and it can create a sunspot using Soul Invictus. And then Healing Grenade. For Grandmasters, I'd highly recommend Healing Grenade. There's no way I would go into a Grandmaster on a Solar Titan without a Healing Grenade, honestly. Healing Grenade is a big reason into why I'm choosing to go with Solar Titan. It's so powerful. Just to give yourself a huge burst of restoration, heal yourself, you can heal through a bunch of stuff. You're not indestructible with it or anything. It's so strong, it's a must. For the aspects, Soul Invictus, Solar Ability Final Blows, Hammer of Soul impacts, and defeating scorched targets creates sunspots. Your abilities regenerate faster, and your super drains more slowly while standing in a sunspot. Sunspots apply Scorch and deal damage to targets inside. Entering a sunspot applies Restoration. So you can get your sunspot using your hammer or by killing scorched enemies. Different ways. This is super helpful for your play loop of being able to use all your abilities. And then another way to get a sunspot is using Consecration. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap into the air. While airborne, activate your charged melee again to slam into the ground and create a second larger wave of damaging solar energy. If the wave hits a scorched target, they ignite. So basically, you scorch them, and then if you hit them again with the second slam, they ignite. And also, it creates solar cyclones because of Pyrogale Gauntlet. Then for the fragments, Ember of Searing, defeating scorched targets, grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. This is kind of leaning into concentration. All the enemies you defeat with consecration will be scorched and will create a fire sprite. Ember of Combustion, final blows with solar super, causes target to ignite and creates a fire sprite. Ember of Solace, radiant and restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. This is just to ensure that when you get your radiant buff of 25% more damage, you can keep it for longer, and also when you get restoration, you can just stay restored for longer. And then Ember of Mercy, when you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain restoration. That's not the important part. The important part is next, picking up a fire sprite grants restoration. So we have two fragments that make fire sprites for us, and then Ember of Mercy grants restoration when you pick one up. That way we get tons of restoration. For the mods on the build, I'm going with a kinetic siphon, because for the most part, my kinetic weapon will be my primary with this setup. I don't have anything in the subclass that really leans into using solar weapons, and that's so I can use kinetic weapons to the fullest extent, really. So kinetic siphon, hands-on, gains super energy on melee kills, and heavy ammo finder. Then on the gauntlets, heavy-handed to create orbs on melee final blows. Impact Induction, when you cause damage with a powered melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown. Focusing Strike grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee. So this is all melee based here. And then on the chest, whatever the threat of the Grandmaster Nightfall is, I'm going to put 2 resistances in that. This week's Master Nightfall was arc threat, so 2 arc resistance. I put on a solar reserves because I was using Apex Predator to just get some more rockets. On the Greaves, using recuperation, replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. Absolution reduces all cooldowns each time you pick up an orb of power. And Solar Scavenger, you get 2 rockets every time you go over a heavy brick instead of just 1. And on the Mark, you got Outreach, reduces melee cooldown when using your class ability. And Reaper, shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power. And Distribution reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets. And then for the weapons, it really depends on which champions you're going up against. This is set up for barrier and unstoppable champions. And then I have another set up for unstoppable and overload. And then I have another setup for barrier and overload. So first, barrier and unstoppable. Outbreak Perfected is a super strong weapon. If you don't have this crafted with rewind wounds, then I highly suggest that you go get that. It is very, very strong, especially with the new buffs in the final shape. This is probably going to be my main weapon for all Grandmasters until it gets nerfed. Other options in the kinetic slot are Patron of Lost Causes. I made a God Roll guide on this, and I don't think I hyped this up enough in that video. It is so good. Triple tap and kinetic tremors together is just amazing. I really love this weapon. If I didn't have to worry about champions at all, I could probably get away with using Witherhoard and a solar weapon here, but I really like being able to take care of whatever champions there are, no matter what. Some other good weapons just to be mindful of. Arbalist is super strong against barrier champions, same with Revision Zero. The Call, which is an incredible new sidearm, can take out Unstoppable. And then a great thing to just have in case is a disorienting grenade launcher. And then I've always loved Witherhoard and Grandmasters, so anytime I can use it, I try to use it. And then for the energy slot, I got Indebted Kindness here to take care of Unstoppable. Once the new solar rocket assisted frame sidearm comes out, I'll probably swap that out and put it into this slot. But I'm not using any damage surges or solar surges, so it doesn't really matter which weapons I use, which gives me a lot of freedom, which I really like. Some other weapons just to be mindful of, like if I did go with Arbalist up top here, then I could run Time-Worn Wayfarer with Heal Clip Incandescent, or Red Death Reformed is really good because it cures on every kill. Polaris Lance is a Grandmaster Nightfall staple. Does a lot of scorching and explosives, but if I were to use Polaris Lance, I'd probably change up some things in my subclass to lean into more ignitions. Still Hunt is super strong even on Titan to just do burst damage. And then No Hesitation, also super strong with Incandescent and a bunch of other perks that are really great. Or Cartesian Coordinate with Vorpal, does a ton of burst damage. And then for the heavy, there's a bunch of options. I like Apex Predator, but when I do Grandmasters, I swap out bait and switch for Explosive Light. I just don't like to have to think about bait and switching in Grandmaster settings, and Explosive Light is a ton of damage, so it works great for that. If I were going into a super ad-dense Grandmaster, I would probably bring a machine gun like Fixed Odds with Incandescent, or Hammerhead with Killing Tally, Envious Assassin. Or if we were going into something with Tormentors and precision damage, I would bring Sleeper Simulant. Or Gallahorn is also always a good option. It's not the highest damage, but it is good. Or you can go with something like Cry Mutiny with Incandescent, Vorpal. Or if we were going into a melee heavy barrier champion Grandmaster, you could bring Lament. These are kind of my favorite weapons for that. And then here I have my Unstoppable Overload setup, with Unstoppable being taken care of by the sidearm and Overload being taken care of by Thunderlord. And then if I were to do that, I would switch out to Arc Scavenger and Arc Reserves over here. But that's the only thing you'd have to change on your armor. And then there's some important things in the artifact. If you're using Patron of Lost Causes, it has Cast No Shadows, so Saint's Inspiration works really well with it. Rounds loaded by Cast No Shadows origin perk can overload the magazine, so every time you do a melee attack, you can overload the magazine of Patron of Lost Causes. Or if you're using the Call, it has Dealer's Choice, so you can use this. And then an important one for my setup is Elemental Siphon. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super create an elemental pickup that matches your equipped super. So all of your kinetic rapid final blows will create a fire sprite, which will give you restoration. And then also really important is Radiant Orbs. While you have Solar subclass equipped, picking up an Orb of Power makes you Radiant. That way you don't have to run Ember of Torches. You can just run Radiant Orbs and get Radiant. And then Shield Crush, While you are radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. I don't really care about the damage because I'm using healing grenade, but it does recharge faster when I'm radiant. And then if I switch to Lament, I would want to use Argent Blade. Otherwise, I probably would just put Prismatic Transfer here. When you cast your super, each member of your fire team with a super type different than yours gains bonus to weapon damage. As for the stats on the build, going to focus Resilience first to make sure you get that 30% damage reduction. Super, super important in Grandmaster Nightfalls. Discipline next to make sure you can have a ton of healing grenades and a ton of restoration. Then Strength third to make sure you can lean into that concentration and get the most out of Pyrogale Gauntlets. If you can get triple 100, that's the best. The other stats don't really matter. We always have a ton of restoration, so recovery doesn't really matter. And we get our super back super fast due to hands-on and due to making a ton of orbs, so intellect doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's the build. It's literally my favorite build in Destiny right now. I love this thing. Super fun to play. You can play it super up close and personal. You can stay back and still do a ton of damage. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I do. Thanks for watching, and please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Peace.